is actually to sit down and free mic it and just probably be a little unconventional. But I'm going to stay here and preach anyway.
That's all right.
Can I have a moment of silence for the ancestors whose back I lean on while I stand here? A moment of silence for James A. Baldwin, a moment of silence for Alvin Ailey. If you follow me on Twitter, I am going to tweet right now a link to the manuscript that I'm about to preach, because I want you to follow me very closely, because I might go a little fast, because there's a lot here. Survivor's remorse, clinically called survivor's guilt, is a mental condition that occurs when a person perceives him or herself to have done wrong by surviving a traumatic event when others did not. Jesus has survived death, hell, and the grave. He's arrived on the other side of a physiological destruction, death being a physical phenomenon, a spiritual displacement, hell being a metaphysical beinghood, an ontological place, not a geological locale or an eschatological consequence. Death, a physiological destruction, hell, a spiritual displacement, and a psychological denigration, the grave. The grave is a mental hopelessness that is formed by the sociological state at hand. However, Jesus has not only survived, but also overcome. He's resurrected from this death, this hell, and this grave. We too have reached our own resurrections. Many of us haven't had near-death experiences. We have altogether died at the hands of our enemies. Some of us didn't make it out of the fiery furnace, and the lions didn't devour the few. For many of us, the seas did not part, and the Pharaoh never let go. And there are those whose heart the terror of night has steeled, and others the arrow of day has impaled. The 1,000 at our right hand have subdued us, and the 10,000 at our left have triumphed. For many of us, like Jesus, we fell into the hand of the betrayer, and our adversaries had their way. Resurrection comes from the old Latin meaning rise again. Jesus' resurrection is beautiful and glorious even, but the problem with the church's miscommunication of this resurrection is that it promulgates a mystical resurrection. A resurrection that happens every day to you and me, the resurrection in my own memory, the resurrection of my grandmother after a brain aneurysm and a stroke, the resurrection of Nelson Mandela after 27 years in prison, the resurrection of Maya Angelou after 7 years of silence, the resurrection of Elie Wiesel after Auschwitz. These resurrections are often erased because they are without literal corpse and tomb. We all get knocked down in life. The death of possibility comes to visit, and hellish theology hold captive our souls. The state of our situation resembles a graveyard, desolate. Death, hell, and grave encircle and crush us, and still like dust we rise. Dr. Angelo says in stanza 6 of Still I Rise, you may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air, I'll rise. I'm talking about us who have come back after the toe tags were signed and the obituaries were issued, after people had wrote our end and did the final edits on our eulogy. Yet to rise again after addiction, to rise again after sexual assault, to rise again from imprisoning theology, to rise again after the machinations of your demise seemingly has consumed you, is a miraculous resurrection that for many of us has been our testimony. It is a resurrection as legitimate, as supernatural, as messianic as the one which we celebrate today. We as African people understand best what it means to survive a death, a hell, a grave. We have undergone the physical dehumanization, objectification, and commodification of the black body, which is a destruction. That is a death. You can look at Trayvon Martin's body in the street and see the dehumanization. You can look in Kylie Jenner's face and see the commodification. That's a death. We have undergone the sacrilege of spiritual ideals we as a people hold. We no longer participate in African initiation rituals. We no longer have our African language. Thus, we have created a hell and damned ourselves to it. We have undergone menticide. Bamani Baruti, the writer of the book, Bamani Baruti, the writer of the book Menticide, says that menticide, listen to me, is the moment in which you willingly think and act out of someone else's interpretation of reality to their benefit and against your survival. We have undergone a physical dehumanization. We have undergone the sacrilege of spiritual ideals, and we have undergone a menticide. And yet, the fact that we are here as a Morehouse, as a Spelman, as a Clark, we have proved the resurrection of the people thought crucified on the cross of capitalism at the place called America. There is someone here, I'm going to bring it home, there's someone here that has lived after people's murderous words. There is someone here who has come back after spiritual brokenness. There is someone present who, despite mental hopelessness, has found their way to make it to this very place. We all, too, are familiar with a death, a hell, and a grave. But the fact that you have made it here is your resurrection, or the very proof thereof. The grander miscommunication about the resurrection is that it is all hocus pocus, that it is solely the flexing of Jesus' God muscles and the verification that he is truly the Son of God. All of which it very may well be, but Easter Sunday becomes for Christians the most jubilant holiday because we get to celebrate the physical, the scientific proof that there's an empty tomb. So we get a gold medal in our God Olympics. But I want to suggest that resurrected bodies carry a responsibility. That even a resurrection can be the catalyst of an existential crisis. Jesus, after his resurrection, was very clear on his responsibility now that he was resurrected. John 20, verses 17, he says, "Do not hold on to me because I have not yet ascended to the Father, but go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father, and your Father, and to your God, and my God." We as resurrected bodies hold a responsibility with our sheer ontology, our very being. Ascension is necessary because it is the ascension which gives others the permission to resurrect. Ascension is really reaching the purpose by being the bridge to other people's purpose. That's the whole point of being resurrected. That's the part of resurrection rarely talked about. That's the part that demands you to become the conduit for other people's resurrection. What I'm saying is that when you have made it through your death, your hell, and your grave, you did not make it through to be idolized, sort of like we've done to Jesus. You've made it to broaden the possibility for others who still lay in their grave. We in the church stop and shout at the resurrection, missing the entire point. If all we focus on today is the majesty of that miracle, we miss the entire message. I find it peculiar, very funny. I find it peculiar, and I find it rather necessary that after the resurrection, After Jesus had said it was finished, he still commissioned us, as if there was a job yet undone, a job that his resurrection couldn't complete. Jesus was dragged on the Via Dolorosa to Calvary, was hung high and stretched wide, only to come back again 3 days later and say that there's more work to be done. I think the church has convinced us that the resurrection was so miraculous that it was utopian. We have this esoteric understanding of the nature of resurrection that I would beg to offer is simply not Bible. The resurrection didn't end Roman occupation, neither did it stop Jewish impoverishment. It didn't equalize political control between the Pharisee and the Galilean. Resurrection isn't a spiritual affirmation, it's not an extrication. It is a spiritual sacrifice. Resurrection is evidence of a sacred surrender of self. It is a post in the journey of purpose. And though you've risen again in a society which understandably champions self-preservation, the price that comes with resurrection, the cost of ascending unto purpose, can be isolation, can be imperfection, can cause a lot of investigation. Luke 24:13 says, "She saw Jesus, but did not know it was him." Luke 24, verses 33 through 37 talks about how they were terrified and frightened and supposed they had seen a spirit. People often don't recognize you when you have been resurrected. Coming back from the dead is an unusual phenomenon, we could say. Even the more coming back after they have counted you out. Jesus knows about this. This bred isolation because people at this point had betted on Jesus staying in the tomb. People even betted that you wouldn't recover. People thought that you wouldn't make it through, that you wouldn't even make it here. And now that you are, the loneliness of survival is your only comfort. You went back for break and they didn't recognize who you had become. Some felt threatened, even were frightened from your speech. You had resurrected and now you are no longer who you were. What Paul failed to mention and the church won't tell you is that when you become this post-resurrection person, this new creature in Christ Jesus, as they say, often community isn't capable of comprehending that. And what community can't comprehend, they will quarantine. The people Jesus had spent his entire ministry with had isolated him and didn't even know it. Because resurrection isn't in the range of most people's existential possibilities. People can't conceptualize what it means for a dead thing to come back to life. But here you are. John 20:27 says this, "See the holes in my hands." Resurrection does not guarantee restoration. Jesus got out of the tomb with all power, yet but was not whole. The scars of Calvary were still evident on his body. Just because the tomb has rolled away, the fires of hell only birthed a phoenix, and the grave has given way to your rebirth, doesn't mean that the bruises and the blemishes on your way to resurrection have gone away. Resurrection isn't the promise of perfection. It is actually the disempowerment of your imperfections. I want to suggest that if you would have disrobed Jesus, you would have seen the scab lacerations on his back. If you would have undone his shoes, you could have seen the holes in his feet too, sifted through his wool hair and seen the punctures left from his crown of thorns. Jesus is saying, see the holes in my hand, and yet I am here. His resurrection was not dictated by his holiness. In fact, it is his very imperfection that Jesus uses to prove that he has truly survived. I can guarantee you that even once you make it through this death, this hell, this grave, you won't be complete. You'll still be blemished. You'll will still remember the stench of the tomb and carry the singes of the flame. And that will be your testament. Matthew 28:6 says, come see where he lay. People will demand that you prove yourself as resurrected, undoubtedly. The first thing that the angel said after Jesus got up wasn't go find him. It was, come see where he lay. This speaks not only to the always present doubt, but also to the belief in the impossibility of what once being dead coming back to life. Not only here, but also across the entire gospel to Thomas and his disciples, Jesus has to prove that he has been indeed resurrected. This piece of the passage here stands out because it is so investigative. It is so humane. People will peer into your past and ask you to verify the authenticity of your revival. People are going to look into your life and analyze it, looking for your shroud of Turin, looking for the thing that kept you, looking for your burial garments. I can see them now looking into the tomb of your life. Death's stinging chills still coating the walls, hell's sulfuric fetor filling their nostrils, the discarnate grip of the grave shadowing their way. Yet, investigating your invigoration, examining the evidence to explain, critiquing the machinery of your comeback. That they most definitely will do. On this side of what you've been through, you would expect glorification, you would expect acceptance, you would expect elation. That's what the church has told us the resurrection really is. But for you and I, and Jesus, those who were dead on Friday night and in hell all Saturday morning, and still in the grave that Saturday evening, know that after Sunday made way, when the warmth of dawn kisses your face, and all those who you know turn away, and all the scars are there to stay, and lingering eyes are still interrogated. Responsibility, but more so remorse, is what's left in the survivor's cup. Their isolation can make you feel alone. Your remaining imperfections can make you feel flawed. Their investigation can make you feel illegitimate. And suddenly the guilt of even being resurrected, of overcoming the responsibility attached to making it out of your situation can become your burden. I want to remind you that after resurrection comes an ascension. And as Jesus said in Acts 1, verses 7 and 8, it is not for you to know the times or the periods that the Father has set by his own authority, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you. You will be my witness in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. I want to suggest that it isn't for them to know what and how and when God did what he did for you. How what happened inside the tomb happened, how the mechanics of your miracle, the constructions of your comeback. But when God gives them, those onlookers who have forsaken you and interrogated you and asked of your inadequacies, when they have been endowed with the power only provided from the Spirit to see in the Spirit, then they will become your witnesses in Jerusalem, in all Judea, in Samaria,